A very happy and safe Diwali to you and your family. I'm Soumya. Welcome to the Facebook live session for skin and hair care. Do it yourself and treatment options. And thank you for taking your time on a beautiful occasion of Diwali. Your hair is your crowning glory. Just the way you take care of your skin, you need to take care of your mane. Proper hair care and skin regimen is important to have a beautiful, healthy, and shiny hair. With external damage causing factors and dust, heat, and pollution, you need to be even more careful. It's always a pleasure to invite the leading dermatologist specialized in cosmetology and cosmetic lasers and hair transplant surgery. Dr. Annie Flora, MBBS, DDVL, VS Hospitals, Chennai. Welcome. Dr. Annie Flora has been practicing dermatology for more than a decade and has helped thousands of patients have better skin and hair with her latest and updated methods of treatment. Being a trainer of dermatologists across the nation, she guides doctors on protocols and patient safety to help patients get excellent results in the safe hands. Her policy is to provide the best hair and skin to all, helping all maintain their excellent skin and hair. Welcome to the VS Hospitals Facebook Live session, Dr. Annie.
Soumya, thank you for your wonderful words. And it's Diwali, so I hope we have a blast today by clarifying a lot of doubts which generally people have on dermatology, skin and hair issue. I thank VS Hospitals for having me here today. So let us begin.
It's a pleasure. Yes. So Dr. Annie, acne is a common issue these days. So acne it's very common between the teenagers, though it affects people of all ages. Can you throw some light on what is acne and what to do when acne is there, and what are the treatment options for acne and scars?
Okay, so acne is basically a problem of our oil glands or the sebaceous glands. These glands are there with us since birth. But what happens after a particular age, particularly this adolescent age, there are a lot of hormonal changes, growth happening. So that is when these oil glands start getting hyperactive. For some of them, they just died over the adolescent age, but for some of them, it starts with acne breakouts. Another thing is this scalp hygiene. Dandruff associated can also add to an increase in acne on the skin. So basically, it's a problem of their oil glands, and it goes on up to the age of 25, after which they can actually come out of the issue. This is the normal age of acne. But what happens for some people, like let us say they are in their 30s and their 40s, they tell us, I have never had acne in my teens, but now I have acne. So these things could be related to hormonal issue. So that is when we have to do a hormonal workup also for them. So any acne is not just, it's normal to have acne at this age. So acne is something you have to live with. It is not like that. There's something underlying which is causing acne, which we have to look into based on the age of the patient. Another thing is based on their lifestyle. Like, let us say there are people who have a lot of high calorie diet, then those people tend to have more amount of acne. Those who have very little water, who do not have enough amounts of fruits and vegetables in their diet, who crash diet. So these are people who tend to develop acne. And another reason for acne is when people use cosmetics which do not suit their skin. They are prone to try fairness creams which are present in the market, prone to use sunscreens which do not suit them. So these are people who can have an acne breakout. Another common thing which people tend to do when they have acne is using face washes which contain tea tree oil, neem oil. So those kind of face washes, neem leaf face wash, they tend to dry the skin, after which the skin has a rebound oiliness which further aggravates the acne. So not everywhere these kind of face washes help. And sunscreens, using over-the-counter sunscreens which do not suit their skin also helps in causing acne. So if you want to know what can be done at home, if you want to know what they can do at home, they should have a good cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen routine for their own skin, and look into their lifestyle so that there's enough hydration and good healthy diet habits. and using proper skincare products, thereby they'll be able to avert it. Another thing which they tend to do is using garlic, ginger on the skin, Colgate paste on the skin, trying to, you know, clear the acne which is there. So these are some things which they should not do at home. So more than what they have to do, there is a lot of things that they should not do when they have acne.
Oh, that was very helpful, Anina. Dark circles. This is also a very common problem which most of us face. So often accompanied by bags, dark circles can make you appear older than you are. To make matters worse, how can it be gotten rid of? So what are the reasons for dark circles?
Dark circles, as of now, when you look at everybody, like when they come into the OPD, you can see at least 2 out of 4 people, like literally 50% of them having dark circles. The main reason being the lifestyle. Right now, it's all system work, computers, mobiles, TV screens, and there's a lot of screen time. So that is one of the major reasons as of now. Otherwise, the common reason is genetic pattern. And with aging, what happens? There's more amount of wrinkling on the skin. There's loss of thickness of the skin, thereby blood pigments start coming out, which gives that darker shade. Another reason is hair dye. Hair dye induced pigmentation can occur. And people who have diabetes, obesity, they tend to have a pigmentation around the eye, which we call as acanthosis nigricans, which can also happen in their neck area. So that is one of the, these are the common things. Other than that, people tend to have something called as atopic dermatitis or allergic dermatitis, cosmetics induced dermatitis. So these are the common reasons by which they can get under eye dark circles. And like I said, it is not just the skin pigmentation, it is the thickness of the skin. It is a loss of blood supply, support system around the blood vessels. All these put together tend to result in dark circle. And when the genetics is bad, then it worsens the problems for the dark circles. So what they can do at home when they are with the systems is minimize screen time, like as much possible. If they have a book instead of a Kindle or Amazon, any of the readers, it's always better to go with the hard copy. And if they're working in the system, always it is better if they take their eyes off every 20 minutes once, give a break of 1 minute, and then go back to their system. Sleep early, wake up on time. Like 10 to 5 is the sleep pattern that somebody has to follow, and hydrate themselves. And if they use any cosmetic on the face, if they try to apply that around the eye, it generally doesn't suit, because any facial creams is meant for the thicker skin. The under eye skin is a little thinner, which cannot tolerate so strong cream. So generally the cream for the face is different for the cream around the eye. So those things they just have to keep track so that they don't result in under eye dark circles. And coming to the treatment part, like let us say we start them on any creams for under eye. It always takes a lot of time, because under eye dark circle is it's too much dependent on their lifestyle pattern. So unless they correct their lifestyle, getting good results with under eye treatments is a little tough. But the starting point of treatment is actually from under eye dark circle creams, which are given as prescription, which can help in the pigmentation to reduce. And once the pigmentation is reduced, they have to maintain it with their lifestyle. Otherwise, they have to be forever and ever on these creams. And when creams alone are not enough, because generally people use creams for 2 months and then they come to us and they say it's still not working, then it's time that we sit and analyze what is the kind of under eye dark circle. Is it blood pigment induced, or is it thickness induced, or is it just the pigmentation on the skin, or it's other aging changes also? We have to address everything in total. Another common thing is people tend to have a pit here, which is called the tear trough, which also happens because of fat loss and aging. In spite of treating with a lot of creams, a lot of peels and everything, that darkness gives a darker shade. It's actually a pit, a shadow effect, which we fill with tear trough fillers. So if you ask me, the routine treatment which we do for under eye dark circles is an under eye peel, and which is supposed to be meant for the sensitive skin, thereby slowly fading away the dark circle. All said and done, it's important that they maintain their lifestyle habits so that the results we achieve tend to stay with the patient.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was very interesting and helpful. So hair fall, which is again another factor which most of us are concerned about, especially women. And as we know, people typically have around 50 to 100 hairs a day they lose. So this usually isn't noticeable because the new hair is growing at the same time. So hair loss occurs, new hair doesn't replace the hair that has fallen out. So please educate on us as to what are the common reasons for hair fall and for hair scalp hygiene. Can you suggest some home care options? And what are the treatments available? And what is PRP, which most of us get to hear these days?
Okay, so let us just understand hair cycle basically. So hair starts growing initially, which is the growth phase or the anagen phase. It grows for around 5 to 15 years based on an individual genetic. After 15 years or so, it has to take a break. So it takes a break of, let us say, 3 months. That is when the hair stops growing, after which it has to fall and the next hair follicle has to start from the same place. This is a normal cycle. And this normal cycle is the reason for the hair loss, which we see daily. Like we have around 50 hair plus on a daily basis, a hair fall which occurs. So when we categorize it as hair fall is when there's an abnormal change in the number of hair fall compared to the regular hair fall which they have. So then we have to see, is there something to do with the scalp hygiene? So if the person has a very oily scalp or if they have a dandruff prone scalp, then it's important that they maintain the scalp health dandruff free or oil free. But it doesn't mean that they should have a very dry, scalp. So they just need to keep it healthy. And once they do that, are they able to see that there's a reduction in hair fall? Then it means we are able to tackle the problem on a small level. But then there are other reasons also. So let us say commonly now what we see is after COVID, after 3 months, hair fall starts. This happens after any stress. Like let us say a patient undergoes a surgery. Like at our center, we see a lot of them like that. So after any surgery or after any illness, like initially it was typhoid, which was causing hair fall like this. But now COVID has taken over. So post-COVID hair fall, what happens is when the patient is sick, they have a shock. The hair undergoes a kind of shock because all nutrients are drawn away from it for the body to recover from the illness. So this causes the hair to lose its nutrition and it stops growing. And after stopping to grow, it has to stay there in the resting phase for 3 months and then it starts falling. So this is what we see after COVID. Everybody after COVID has huge amount of hair loss. Literally, they lose 70% of their hair within a span of 2 months or 3 months. So they need additional nutritional support. They need antioxidants and they need hair growth serums, hair growth solutions, prescription medicines to be able to tide over this episode so that the hair fall comes under control and hair regrowth starts. This is one scenario. The other common thing is people do a lot of, weight loss, dieting. I'm not eating this, I'm not eating that. So all this food fads result in a lot of nutritional deficiency. So when we do not give enough support, nutritional support, how can we expect it to grow? So that is one of the major reasons. Anemia is a major reason. And the commonest cause for anemia is tummy worms. People get it because they eat a lot of outside food, which is very common in the city culture. We can see, frequently with Swiggy and Zomato and everything happening.
Yeah.
So outside food means you do not have control over the hygiene of the chef. So that is one of the reasons why we get the tummy worms. So if we do not deworm regularly, these tummy worms are going to absorb all the nutrition away, and anemia is one of the common ways in which it manifests. So treating anemia is not just iron correction, it is also deworming ourselves. So there's a lot of things going on in a nutritional deficiency. And if you ask me what kind of a diet somebody has to follow, it should include everything: carbohydrate, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. So if you just Google, we will get the entire list of what we need to have. Protein, greens, vegetables, non-veg, egg, nuts, HDL, omega-3 fatty acid containing nuts. All these are very good for the hair. So it has to be in the diet. So this is another scenario. Coming to the next part is the hormonal reasons. In females, hormonal pattern hair loss causes a thinning of the scalp. Generally, scalp is thin and hair density is less. This runs in the families, it runs in the genetics. In men, what happens is the baldness starts, like the forehead starts rising, the line starts receding, and then baldness sets in. So this is called as male pattern baldness, and in females, it is called as female pattern hair loss. These two things are hormone dependent. So unless we find out the actual reason for the hair fall, if we do not correct the actual reason, the patient does not find the actual cure for the problem. Like Certain people may be on, maybe diet induced. So then if we give them a good diet itself, they'll be able to come out of it. But those with the hormonal thing, if we just give them a good diet, they may not come out of it. They may be needing a lot more treatments to help with the hormonal issue also, and so that they can actually grow their hair back. So what I'm talking about all these scenarios is that we can actually arrest the hair fall and bring back hair growth. There's only one scenario where we cannot bring back hair growth. That is where baldness has already happened. So let us say a male has got baldness up to the center. We cannot expect hair to grow in the front area. It generally can grow where the density loss is there, but complete baldness, the only solution is hair transplant. So let us say you were asking me this question on PRP, because everybody walking into the OPD, they have this query, will PRP help me? What is PRP? PRP is basically platelet-rich plasma, which is nothing but our body's own growth factor. Each cell is a growth factor containing bag. So it's full of growth factors. So what we do in PRP, we remove all the other elements, like we remove the RBCs, WBCs, we remove what is not needed, and we take only the platelets. And since it's from our own body, it doesn't have any side effects. It's autologous from us to us. So we take it, we concentrate it, put it right next to the hair roots, so that the hair roots, they find the nourishment which they need for starting the growth. So where PRP works, where all treatments have been used, where treatments have not helped hair growth, and the hair roots need a good boost to restart. Like we find people who have been using minoxidil for 5 years, 8 years, but now the resistance starts. Their minoxidil doesn't work anymore. When we add PRP, they can regrow hair. Then when there's a fast shedding of hair fall, like too much of hair is falling down, you want to arrest it a little early than this. If you don't do anything, the hair fall continues for at least another 6 months. So we need to arrest that cycle of hair fall. That is when PRP comes into play. And what it does, it is able to restart all the dormant follicles, which are just sitting there, not willing to regrow. It is able to bring them back and restart the follicles. So those follicles will again start growing, after which nutritional supplements and medicines, topical medicines, which we apply, will be able to sustain the growing hair. So that is about PRP. Another thing what you asked me was about hair transplant. So like I was saying, with all medications, with all the other treatments, we can regrow the density loss which the patient sees, except for baldness. So that is one scenario where you can actually help with a hair transplant. And the hair transplant that I do is called FUE method. And there are so many names, each of them with their own, every clinic has its own name. There's a bio-PRP, there's a sapphire blade PRP, transplant, so many different varieties. But basically what happens in a hair transplant is, hair is taken from the patient and replaced again, transplanted again into the patient. So this is the area, the back of the scalp is the area, the occipital area is the one where hair is stress-free, hair is hormonal independent. So whatever happens to the front top half, nothing happens to the back. So from there, we borrow follicles and we put them to the front, which is the bald area. So simply put, this is the process. It is a daycare procedure, but there's a lot of workup before we go in for it. Like we have to analyze what is their lifestyle, how much of the sustainability they can follow, how good is their healthy, healthy eating habits, how do they even go to work? Do they drive a bike or do they use public transport or car? So because all this depends on the aftercare. So preparation with blood tests and everything, and then the COVID protocol. After doing all this, the patient walks into the theater. It's a local anesthesia procedure. Patient is absolutely comfortable. They will be chatting with us throughout the procedure when we are doing the transplant. It takes roughly around 2 to 3 hours to remove the follicles from the back. We are just borrowing it. So let us say there are 200 follicles in 1 square centimeter. So what we do, we borrow 30 from there. We leave 170 there. So that is the concept of a hair transplant. We borrow all these, take them together, and then we place it in the bald area in the front. And the procedure is done. Aftercare is different, which is beyond the scope of discussion today. So after transplant, after 1 month, the patient starts losing whatever has been transplanted because the shaft has to fall off and then the next follicle has to restart. So the day of the procedure, patient goes home, they stay inside the house for 1 week, after which they try to follow their routine habits and everything. After 1 month, hair starts growing. And to get the full result of hair transplant, it takes anywhere between 6 months to 1 year based on their growth pattern. So a bald head to a full head of hair takes 1 year post-transplant, because this is something I want to clarify. Many people who have a wedding in 2 months' time, they come and they ask us, I want a quick fix. I want my hair to start growing within this 1 month. So if we have 1 year, it's adequate time to give the good entire result which they anticipate after a hair transplant. So this is about all hair treatments in a gist, but not everybody needs a PRP or a hair transplant. It's only those who who do not respond to the regular treatment that we have to do all these things. If the patient, I'm sorry, if the patient responds to regular medication, the treatment starts and ends there. If the patient needs a lifestyle care, this treatment is just the lifestyle care alone. So finding the cause and treating it correctly forms the major crux of handling any kind of hair fall for that matter. Another thing many of them will be wanting to know is, we were discussing on acne and their lifestyle, what all they have to do. Okay. They're not supposed to use all these pastes and toothpaste on their face. They're not supposed to pick their pimples. They are not supposed to frequently overwash their face. I moved from hair transplant to acne because this is something this was pending. I wanted to clarify this. And so pick their pimples is something we don't want them to do, because once they pick it, it's going to leave a scar. So they should not do that. Overwashing the face is going to cause rebound oiliness, rebound overactivity. It's important to keep the scalp clean when somebody has acne. And what are the treatment options for acne? It starts from a good face wash, which is an acne control face wash, a good moisturizer, which does not cause acne. See, any moisturizer which you buy in the supermarket has the tendency to cause acne. So once somebody has acne, they are not supposed to try any of these products. They are not supposed to try fairness creams. Right. Sunscreen also, there are so many categories. They are supposed to use sunscreens which are meant only for acne prone skin, not just anything in the market. And anti-acne creams are there, anti-acne tablets are there, antibiotics, so many things have to be given to the patient. Benzoyl peroxide, adapalene, tretinoin, there's kiwi fruit extract also, which we use for acne control. So based on their, sometimes pregnant females come and we have limitation on what can be given. So based on what kind of a patient we have to deal with, the medication varies. And once there's no more result, when the medications are not working, that is when the role of chemical peels come inside, because everybody wants a chemical peel right these days. So, and they keep asking us, can I do a peel for this? Can I do a peel for that? Can I do microdermabrasion for this? So when there's a lot of comedones or blackheads, whiteheads, which are not responding to any treatment, a microdermabrasion helps. Chemical peels for acne control, they give good result. Like let us say 3 to 6 months control of acne can be obtained by doing regular chemical peels, which cannot be obtained with a prescription medicine alone. And after chemical peels, we have Q-switch Nd:YAG laser, and that helps in reducing the bacterial load, so that the bacteria which causes the acne is brought under control. So it's a combination. We have to do different kinds of treatments to bring acne under control. And after acne, people always have spots and scars. So for spots, again, peels, lasers. For scars, it's a huge combination. It's a different set of treatments. Generally, for scar revision to happen, it takes anywhere between 4 months to 1 year, based on the amount of scars that they have. Each pit is a different pit. So there are something called as ice pick scars, box scars, rolling scars, different kinds of acne scars. And for all these things, different kinds of treatment like TCA cross, subcision, derma roller, micro needling, fractional laser. And right now, the most commonly used one is the micro needling RF. And each of them have different downtimes, different kind of results which we can obtain. So this acne scar treatment is a separate thing. Maybe in the next talk, we will be able to, discuss about it separately also.
Yeah, I know. This was more elaborate.
It was very helpful. Clarify a lot of general questions.
So, Dr. Annie, this was very informative and helpful topic about hair fall and PRP treatment and all. And you've almost covered the baldness, the way we treat the baldness, and because it's a turning point for many men and women in their life. It not only impacts the physical appearance, but can also shake a person's confidence. I'm talking about the baldness that we were discussing. So now for this baldness, there's a process of hair transplant which we spoke about. Is that a painful session, and duration of stay in the hospital, is anything like that required? And is there any anesthesia that is required during the hair transplantation? And I would like to know all these things.
So hair transplant, like I already told you, it's a local anesthesia procedure. Patient doesn't need, an anesthetist. They are not sedated. Like they do not go to sleep when it is done. They are completely awake. And the area from where we take the graft is first anesthetized. Local anesthesia is just given there, after which they're completely comfortable. Like I was telling you, they chat along with us when we are doing the procedure. The whole 3 hours, they listen to music. They talk to us. They even ask the playlist what they want. So it goes on like that. 3 hours goes on like that. So once we take all the graft, the patient is turned over and the front side is again prepared, which is again with local anesthesia. The patient is not sedated. Patient is not put to sleep. And let us say we begin it in the morning. Patient is, the hair transplant is done by evening. After an hour of observation, patient can go back home. But one thing which people worry is about the safety of hair transplant. It has to be done by a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon. Unless you know your surgeon, you're not supposed to get hair transplant done, because there are so many centers cropping up. They talk about, per graft cost. Like I charge 35 rupees to 45 rupees per graft. Who is going to do the surgery? Nobody knows. Who is responsible for the patient? Nobody knows. Just for the price and the packages, people generally go to such places. After which they come back to us, they say they place so many grafts, but then there's only few growing. I'm not able to see anything happening. This is for the people who have not got any side effects. See, there are protocols on the local anesthesia to be used. Patient preparation, we keep monitoring ECG, BP, everything is monitored when the patient is inside the theater. And the theater has to be completely aseptic. It has to be completely, which doesn't happen in regular commercial centers. When it is our OT, I should compliment VS Hospital because it has the, world-class theater which is there. So which is something which we don't want to compromise for the patient's safety. So when we are there, we know how safe it is for the patient to undergo the procedure and how comfortable it is for the patient also. So morning they come in, evening they go back home. There's a follow-up after 2 days. Then there's a follow-up after 2 weeks, after which the patient just has to follow the prescription for the next 6 months. For some of them, we do PRP after hair transplant because some of them may need a boost for the hair to start regrowing. Another thing is people who smoke, for them the outcome I find is a little less compared to the the regular people who do not smoke. Forget about alcohol and other habits, but smoking is definitely injurious to hair because it reduces the blood supply. It just closes the size of the the blood vessel which is near the hair follicle. So no blood, no hair growth. Even when we do transplant, we cannot see blood oozing out at all. That is because it's fibrosed. So hair cannot survive in such an unhealthy environment. So what we do, we ask them to stop smoking for 2 months. Like this is what I follow. And in that time, we load them with enough and more antioxidants. So they come out of the side effects of the smoking habit. And then hair transplant is planned for them. And like I said, it takes 6 months to 1 year for the hair to grow.
Okay. So that was very informative, doctor. So what is your take-home message for our viewers?
One thing is, do not try anything strong on the skin. Do not self-prescribe, particularly on fairness creams, because one friend turns white, everybody wants to turn white. That white may be an unhealthy white. So there's something called hydroquinone in a prescription. If you see it in a cream, you're not supposed to use it. If you see something containing steroid, if you find there's a cream and you want to know whether it has steroid, just type the name of it on, ask Google to know whether it has, because steroid has a side effect of giving fairness, but it's actually not real fairness. It's thinning the skin, which makes the under layers visible on the skin. So it means we are losing our skin in the process, but they look fairer. The day they stop, they will turn dark. They will get a lot of acne. The blood vessels start being visibly shown. And if you use it on the body, stretch marks and all form. So these are long-term side effects of steroids, which you do not know because your friend gives you some cream which he has used. Betnovate is something everybody uses. For fairness, it's actually an allergy treating cream, which we use for allergy. Because when they come to us, they ask us, doctor, does this contain steroid? Will any of these, many times we don't give steroid only for the patient, but they ask us, does this have steroid? So this much of awareness should be there when your friend gives you a cream. Do not use steroid, do not use hydroquinone. For acne, the entire set of skincare products should be dermatologist recommended. It should not be something over the counter, because acne has to be brought under control, and many times it's your products which cause the acne. And ruling out the actual cause is more important. And under eye dark circle is mostly dependent on your lifestyle pattern. So work on having a healthy lifestyle, good sleep habits, screen monitoring time. Keep using, you can use that blue light glasses. You can use sunscreens, and have a good night's sleep and eat enough of vegetables and fruits. Hydrate yourself. This is for good skin and for good hair. Coming to transplant and hair care, just follow good diet and let us do the rest of the job for you. That is a take home. It was quite long. I hope it was clear, Soumya. So I think Soumya's connection is not there. Under eye dark circles and wrinkles, one common thing I advise for people is using blue light glasses when they are in front of monitors, and Polaroid sunglasses when they go outdoors, because when you wear Polaroid glasses, you can see that the wrinkles on the forehead and around your eyes, as well as the pigmentation, reduces. However, when you do not wear the glass, you can try it out when you're outdoors, Polaroid glass without. That difference you can definitely see. So it goes a long way in preventing your aging. Use adequate sunscreen, use the right kind of sunscreen for your face, so that it can actually give good results for the skin without damaging it. Many people have a very dry skin and they use a matte finish sunscreen, which doesn't suit them, because without a moisturizer, when you use a sunscreen on a dry face, it may not always work to your benefit. You can still see dark lines, especially those with dry skin. They see, pigmentation here, near the nose and the sides of the face. It's only the nose which is spared, the center which is spared, everywhere else it turns dry. So it's important that you use adequate moisturizer if you have dry skin. If you have acne prone skin, non-comedogenic moisturizer, non-comedogenic sunscreen, oil control, face wash. So this is just about what you need to follow for acne prone skin, under eye dark circles. And hair care products, there are a lot of serums. The serums which a doctor prescribes for you, a dermatologist prescribes for you, is meant to be used in your roots, hair roots, and not for the entire hair, because the serums which we give work differently compared to the serums which you buy in the market. Like those are conditioners, leave-on conditioners, which are also called as serums. So what we use are the ones which go into the roots. Like, let us say hair is affected by hormones, and hair is also affected by other nutritional deficiencies and other reasons. So once we find the cause and we give the correct kind of treatment and you follow it correctly, that is when you can actually come out of the problem. Do not try OTC products. Do not try, different combos which may or may not work for you. It's always best to ask for a professional advice. Soumya, you're back. I gave the summary in a gist, but a quite long gist, I suppose, Soumya.
Dr. Annie?
Yeah.
So thank you so much. That was very helpful, and I'm sure for today's generation, this hair fall and the acne issues and baldness is something which has been very concerning. So I'm sure our viewers will be, utilizing the techniques that you've been told to take care at home. And thank you so much. Everyone desires a gorgeous hair and skin. At VS Hospitals, we understand this aspiration. So everyone's skin and hair type demands a customized level of treatment. We are always on toes constantly to ensure that we help you look your best. So thank you so much, Dr. Annie, for spending your valuable time in educating us on hair and skin. We wish you a very happy Diwali and a safe Diwali to you and your family.
Thank you, Soumya. Thank you, VS Hospitals, for giving me this opportunity. Happy Diwali to all.
So yes, viewers, thank you for sharing, for staying with us and getting to know what is required, the most important aspect in this generation. So join us on Thursday, that is on 11th November 2021 at 8 p.m. for a Facebook Live session on oral and the role of an oral and maxillofacial surgery. So our head and neck surgeon, that is Dr. Professor S. Nachiappan, will be joining us. And I wish you all a happy Diwali and stay safe. Enjoy your Diwali. We'll see you soon. Stay tuned.